Republican Party ramping up its anti-Trump efforts. We're going to sit down with a reporter from Politico who's got the inside scoop on what the GOP wants to do and how it's trying to do it. Then it's looking like it's just a matter of time till Hillary Clinton locks up the Democratic nomination. But the question is, can she rally a base that so far hasn't been turning out in big numbers? And we also take a look at Nancy Reagan's life and legacy. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. There is a renewed push to dump Trump. The anti-Trump forces, they're set to spend nearly $10 million at least before the pivotal Florida primary on May 15th, a week from tomorrow. Here is a sample of how they're going after him.
We'll beat the out of them.
They're ripping the out of the sea. Bullshit. What the hell are we doing?
You're not going to raise that price.
I had the best words, and you can tell them to go themselves.
Well, Politico reporter Alec Eisenstadt is here to tell us more about the anti-Trump efforts. You said it in a column last week that you co-wrote, which is Welcome to the GOP Civil War, and it's only gotten stranger. This all-out offensive to take down Trump. Is the betting money here that they waited too long, too little, too late?
That seems to be the sense. There was a sense that this should have started a long time ago, that to defeat Trump, what you really had to do was begin a narrative against him, to have a focused message that started really last year and to continue it on through the nominating contests, which have begun just in the last few weeks. But now it's beginning right ahead of the big March 15th primaries, when a lot is on the line. And some believe that it may just be too little, too late.
Is it as much the calendar that, and specifically, I know one of the people quoted in your piece said, hey, if Trump wins Ohio and Florida, and he's up double digits in Florida, it's game over here come the 15th. Is it more the calendar, or is it that to take down Trump, probably the principal beneficiary would be Ted Cruz, who they hate just as much?
Well, that's another really great point. There are a lot of people in the Republican Party establishment who are not fond of either of these guys. Now, there's some people who say they prefer Donald Trump to Ted Cruz. Some people say they prefer Ted Cruz to Donald Trump. But really, you ask a lot of these people, they don't want either one of them. So the notion of taking down Donald Trump could lead to Ted Cruz, and that's something a lot of them don't want. And it's like, well, who do you go after? What do you do? That's definitely been one of the sort of things that has obstructed getting a clean shot at Donald Trump.
You know, Alex, I thought it was interesting that after Mitt Romney delivered that rebuke against Trump, the radio silence from the other candidates running, it's none of them that they wrap their arms around Romney as saying, thankfully somebody spoke up. Is that because Romney's perceived as a loser from 4 years ago, a hypocrite because, he went on bended knee, or to hear it how Trump would describe it even more than that, to try and get his endorsement, or that they saw him as trying to position himself as the white knight in Cleveland potentially? He was doing it for self-serving interests. Why did nobody rally around what Romney was saying, even if they agreed with the messaging?
Well, I think to some extent people did rally around it. Folks said they agreed. John Kasich said he agreed. Ted Cruz said he agreed. The problem actually kind of came during the debate when, I don't know if you recall, but in the debate, this is last Thursday of last week, Mitt Romney came out, gave this very high-profile speech in Salt Lake City. Then that evening, there was a debate, a real slugfest. The last question in the debate was, would you support Donald Trump if you were the nominee? And to a word, John Kasich, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio all said they would in fact support Donald Trump if he were the party's standard bearer. So the question is did they undercut the message that Mitt Romney had earlier on in the day?
To that end here, what's the goal? I know the goal is to take down Trump, but is the best case scenario for the establishment that they get to Cleveland and then they can broker some kind of convention here? Or are they saying anybody but Trump will hold their nose if we have to? What's the end goal here if they could have the perfect scenario?
The conventional wisdom is that this is going to conclude in one of two ways. One, as Donald Trump being the Republican Party nominee, him winning the necessary 1,237 Republican Party delegates before the convention in Cleveland this summer. The other possibility is that no one attains the 102,037 delegate threshold, and then this heads to a big fight in Cleveland. No one knows how this is going to turn out. But there are a lot of people, there's the new school of thought that a lot of people believe that if Trump does not clean up on March 15th and does not win both Ohio and Florida, that this will turn into a convention fight, possibly between him and Ted Cruz. That's the new speculation, but no one knows.
You know, I know this is like manna from heaven for guys like us who cover this, but this is getting stranger by the day. You cannot make this stuff up if you even tried. Alex, I appreciate it for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Donald Trump has to battle fellow Republicans trying to take him down, but at least there is one person he won't have to face, at least on the campaign trail, Michael Bloomberg. Former New York City mayor just announced within the last hour he is not jumping into the race as a third party. Let's bring in our panel to discuss the very latest. Jeannie Zaino, professor of political science at Iona College and a professor of campaign management at NYU. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Nan Hayworth, former Republican congresswoman from New York. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. On top of all that latest news, Nan, there's word coming out of the Rubio campaign that not only are donors holding back right now, but there are some pressures that maybe he needs to get out and get out even before Florida. We don't think that'll happen, but they're looking at the math just like Bloomberg did and said, we don't see a path to get to the magic number. My gosh, if to have to choose between Trump and Cruz, who would have ever imagined it?
John Kasich is still in the race, Richard, and I'm not saying that out of false hope. I mean, this really is...
I like the Ohio governor as well here, but I almost have as good a shot at this point.
Well, I think this is, every season is remarkable in some way, but this is particularly so. And one of the other interesting phenomena is that note that Chris Christie basically acted as something of an assassin trying to get at Marco Rubio, did ding Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio tried to act as something of an assassin toward Donald Trump and has ended up suffering therefrom. I think he did ding Mr. Trump in some ways, but I mean, this is just, you know, the kamikaze missions.
Just even on a bizarre, this may be inside baseball, but Andrew, Meg Whitman, who was his finance chair for the Christie campaign, she's now raising money to go after Trump. With another PAC that's going to spend, as we said, all in, probably between 10 and 15 million, a bunch of PACs between now and next Tuesday. And next Tuesday's huge. You've got Ohio, Florida. These aren't even proportional. Winner take all. Conceivably, Trump, if he wins Florida, where he's up right now, about 9 points by the latest numbers, in Ohio, where he's up marginally right now, if it's not over, it sure looks like it almost is.
In terms of the delegate count going towards Cleveland, yes, although there are some trends that may see a glimmer or a ray of sunshine on the horizon. Louisiana voted over the weekend. The early ballot voters that came in that race were like 20 points in favor of Donald Trump. The in-day registration or the in-day voting, I think he only won by 3% in Louisiana, and there really does seem to be something of a concerted effort building up, and people may be responding to it and walking away from Trump. Again, he's off to such a big early lead and he's got so much momentum that it may be too little too late. But I think this is what's feeding the sort of anybody but Trump efforts.
Is it really anybody but Trump? And to me, that's the most fascinating part, Nan, which is not one, I think maybe one now, of his Senate colleagues has supported Ted Cruz.
Right.
And I've heard from Bob Dole saying, I'll consider even Trump before I'll go for Cruz. I mean, they think of this guy as an arsonist within the party in terms of what he's done.
Right.
Taking down Trump, you're emboldening or lifting up Cruz. Is that really what the party wants?
I think, obviously, based on what the Senate, how the Senate has responded to Ted Cruz, no, that's not what they want. If you look at, where's the money flowed in the Republican Party? The big money, certainly from New York, flowed initially to Walker and Rubio. Then when Walker dropped out, it went to Bush. Then when Bush dropped out, it went to Rubio. I mean, we've all watched the patterns around here. Everybody's trying to go for the person they think will be the best combination of an appropriate choice and electable. Right, and the process keeps confounding them. But I think the one thing Republicans should not do, no Republican at any level should vow not to vote for any given Republican nominee.
And already we've heard Chrissy Todd Whitman, obviously people know well from New Jersey, say at this point if she had to choose between, Trump and she'd vote for Hillary. And that's an anathema, but is this really all about a broker convention and that's the last great Hail Mary that they're trying to do? They're just trying to get to Cleveland without anybody winning at that point, and then who knows what goes on.
That's probably their last hope at this point. As Andrew mentioned, the calendar is working against them, the math is working against them, and there's two paths to a brokered convention at this point. You keep Kasich in, he wins Ohio, you keep Rubio in, he wins Florida, and with these big winners take all states, you keep Trump from getting the number, the 1237 he needs to take this thing straight out. The other path is you get Kasich, Rubio, Cruz, get two of those guys out, and it would probably be Kasich and Rubio. Everybody coalesces around Cruz, and that way you keep the numbers down for Trump. Are you going to get Kasich out? Are you going to get Rubio out? Probably not at least until the 15th or the 16th.
They're hoping that somebody in Cleveland is an alternative. If there's an alternative around, who knows what goes on? It becomes stranger than fiction. Dom, if the betting money were here at the table, they'd say whether you like it or not, Trump is still the odds-on favorite the way the math goes. Nobody talks about it. I've seen the polls in New Jersey and New York. If those primaries even matter when we get to that point in the calendar, he's winning going away. And again, delegate-rich states over here. Okay, my point, though, is work with me hypothetically. If he's the nominee, do you think at the end of the day
if he's a nominee,
Nan and the rest are going to have to get around them to support him at the end? Or is it, what's coming, the withering press.
Dominic.
The withering press that's coming, and the stuff that hasn't even come out yet. Andrew's got a folder this thick of all the Trump stuff, and some of the stuff that Hillary and friends are going to have. What do they do?
At least they have a shot. A slim, slight, hypothetical, possible, alleged shot with Trump as the nominee. Yeah. If Cruz, be careful what you wish for.
Right.
And this is the point, Richard, that you've been making seriously for several weeks in terms of Trump or Cruz, because see, the media has this wicked way of playing games with you. The media is now building up Cruz, pointing out that Trump is only 75 delegates ahead of him. And the moment that Trump is out of the picture, oh my God, what the media is going to do to Ted Cruz. Sure. Just look at this region, pointing out what he said about New York and so on, and the Planned Parenthood and Supreme Court, and on and on and on.
And the money that he was involved in class action lawsuits and all the rest.
Dominic, I submit to you, and Richard, they're doing electoral college math. Anybody looking at a Cruz candidacy would say, well, New York's already lost to the Republican anyway. Maybe Donald Trump probably is the only one who would have a substantial shot at it, and even then, just given the registration numbers, I think it'd be difficult. And the party has got to watch it because we are playing with plutonium here.
Yes.
Because Donald Trump has amassed an incredible following, as we all know. So, while some may dream of a brokered convention, I think they've done it in a clumsy way. If you're going to go after Mr. Trump and do it in the right way, go after policy. Say, hey, let's be specific about policy, Mr. Trump. Really, what are you talking about? How does that comport with what we traditionally think of as Republican values, right?
Convention, I know,
but
Andrew,
a brokered convention,
it's not going to work.
Trump fans are going to be furious.
Because one, you're assuming Rubio has cut Trump's lead in Florida, but you're assuming that Trump calls him what, Little Marco?
Among other things, yeah.
Among other things, and talk about hands. But you're assuming that Rubio's going to win Florida, and you're assuming that Kasich is going to win Ohio. Those are some huge assumptions.
Right. 2 quick points. One, just to follow up on what Dominic was saying about the media. Just letting everybody at home know there was not some board meeting of the media where everybody decides who we're going after now.
You missed that meeting?
It just sort of goes, wait, there is one? It just sort of goes one at a time. Whoever the flavor of the month happens to be, and it's been Trump for a long time. If you go back 4 or 8 years, there have obviously been other flavors of the month. The other thing is, when looking to the Cleveland Convention, keep your eye on the GOP and their rules committee, particularly when it comes to the Cleveland Convention. They have this rule that you have to win 8 states in order to be considered a nominee. If there's really going to be an effort to broker this convention in Cleveland, at some point between now and July, the RNC has to meet and pass a change to the rule that somebody who doesn't win 8 states can actually be the nominee. Otherwise, the whole broker convention thing can't happen anyway, unless it's going to go to either Trump or probably Cruz.
You just have a brokered convention because Trump will take his marbles and go home.
Right.
And his energized base goes with him.
Exactly.
You cannot have a broken
And
convention.
even if he didn't run as a third-party candidate, essentially they'd sit home. A lot of them would sit home.
Okay. When we come back, we're going to talk about other things, Nancy Reagan, a little bit later in the program. But straight ahead, we're going to take a look at the state of the Republican Party here that she and her late husband loved. How did it turn into what we're seeing now? You look at a debate here, honestly, I don't know if I wanted my 10-year-old watching it. That's how crude the thing got. Incredibly nasty campaigns, zero when it comes to substance. Is it possible some of the folks here brought this upon themselves? We'll talk about that straight ahead.